How's a tiger?
Couldn't tell.
Yeah, you could.
Rar. There's a lot of things that say rar.
What says rar?
Like a bear, a lion.
No, bear's like grrr.
A liger. A jaguar, a cheetah. Don't know which one you
I
are.
feel like if you were to take a poll and say what animal says rar, most people would say tiger. I would guess 98% people.
No, I bet they'd say lion.
Instagram poll. We're gonna do it. Go
Okay.
vote.
Great.
Well, now people know. Well, only the people listening.
Yep.
So. Oh, Sarah was so excited that everyone voted on this topic on her Instagram.
Yep.
She was so excited. So
I'm very excited.
yeah.
Yep. Should be an interesting one. So, what is your what is your stance?
Well, my take is that most zoos should, I almost said shoes. Most zoos should be illegal.
No, that is not what we originally said.
What?
We originally said you think that all zoos should be banned.
I think most.
Now you're changing?
I'm not changing.
Yes.
No, there's definitely some zoos out there that actually do what they say and they're 100% for animals. But I don't have a percentage, but I would wager like 98% of zoos are not that way.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a bold statement. I'm sticking by it. I think there are some zoos, though, if you can even call them zoos or sanctuaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wildcat Rescue.
Yeah. What's her name?
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin.
We're not gonna talk about that this time because.
And we're definitely not talking about the Lion King.
Everyone is probably so tired of hearing about it. That was a joke, by the way. That place should be burned to the ground.
With the animals not inside it.
Yeah, preferably.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
I did want to say, though, I totally understand why people love zoos. I mean, we've taken Beckham there before.
I have. Have you ever come to the zoo with me? Maybe once. I don't even know.
I definitely have.
Oh.
If you count No, I think, I actually don't know. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. I like going to the zoo. So I'll throw that out there.
Okay. I do understand why people love zoos though, because I don't know, like it's exciting. When I was little, I loved zoos, and it's cool to see animals and lions and polar bears and all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember my very first experience where I thought to myself, I don't like zoos.
When was that?
It was, let's take this back to 2000 and, no, just kidding, I don't know the exact date.
When I was a little boy.
When I was a little boy in Venezuela. Oh, inside joke. Sorry. Everyone's like, what the heck? Our little boy's making noise in his room if people can't hear it.
Yeah.
We're just going to roll with it, though, until he starts crying.
Yeah, he's just talking.
And maybe we'll just let him cry. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So I don't remember the exact year. I think it was sometime after high school. And I was at the zoo with some friends or something. I don't remember who I was with. And I was at like the gorilla sanctuary thing. And there was one giant gorilla in it. And there was this glass. It wasn't bars. It was glass. It's like cage thing. And all these kids were banging on the glass. Mm-hmm. And the gorilla was going nuts. He was running and getting angry, and they just thought it was like the funniest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt a lot of pity for the gorilla, and I just thought to myself, this is not the right place for him to be. And After that, I started looking at animals in zoos very differently because
Yeah.
I feel like most of them don't look happy, honestly.
You're an animal reader.
I think it's
You
obvious.
can tell.
No, I think it's
What about people's pets in their houses? Like, they don't look happy.
some aren't. Maybe depending on how they're kept. Some look very happy.
Some are just like, meh. How do you
That
even
was always
know?
the debate in my house with my mom and my dad. That was the only thing they almost argued about was whether or not a dog should be kenneled or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, yeah.
my
Yeah.
dad thinks that, dogs should be in kennels and my mom doesn't. And I'm on the side of my mom. I don't think animals should be in kennels.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think that they should probably be on leashes if you're walking them.
Mhm.
Some animals, I don't know, maybe some are trained well enough, but yeah. Anyways, I believe that too, though, that there's animals in homes that probably aren't happy.
Yeah.
Definitely aren't happy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was kind of my first experience, and that's kind of the reason why I feel the way I do.
Well, great. I don't have any reason why I like the zoo other than I just like to go.
For your own selfish pleasure.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's cool to go and learn about different animals and see them. So.
I get that though. Like I agree.
Mhm.
It is exciting, but anyways.
Yeah. Well, do I start?
Sure.
'Kay. All right. So my first thing is I just wanted to look back at like the first zoos ever in history compared to like modern day zoos. And so from sites.google.com/zoo animal conservation.
Wow.
I know, it's intense. There's an article titled First Zoos versus Modern Zoos. So the first American zoo was in the late 1700s, and English settlers have had a keen fascination with exotic wildlife after the discovery of many new lands. So there were a ton of European royal families who kept exotic animals as pets in like extravagant gardens and palaces, just like in Aladdin, They did that.
Yes.
Their tiger, Raja.
Very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that its name?
Yeah.
Raja?
Yeah.
I didn't know
I did.
Cool.
All right. It wasn't until July 1874 when the Philadelphia Zoo opened its doors, making it the first American zoo.
The Philadelphia Zoo was the first zoo
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have something that talks about the Philadelphia Zoo.
Do you?
I
It was
do.
in 1874. Yeah. The main purpose of this first zoo was public amusement and profit, and animals were put on display in cramped living quarters with little attention to their well-being. So that was the first zoo. So along with that, from the nationalgeographic.org, the first zoos were created as private collections by the wealthy to show their power as well as like the first zoos. So they wanted a whole bunch of different exotic animals to show how wealthy they were and how powerful they were. So obviously that has changed a lot since now. I mean, I guess there are some people who have, I don't know if it's a zoo, that they have, animals in their home that are exotic or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's to show their wealth. I think they just want it.
I think there's two types of people that are into those things. There's like the weirdos. Actually, they're all kind of weirdos.
Carol Baskin.
We said we were going to talk about that. I'm sorry if anyone listening to this has exotic animals, but everyone that is really into animals, honestly, like I love animals, but people that are really into animals, I feel like are usually kind of weird.
I had a friend that she owned 2 flying squirrels.
Was she weird?
You liked her. Is Megan Croc.
Shh. Beep. Why did you finish saying the name? You like stopped because you realized. Oh well, okay.
Sorry. She was my friend though. I really loved hanging out with her, and I thought her animals were really cool. But yeah,
Flying squirrels aren't crazy.
I wouldn't say they're like exotic, but I don't know. Are they?
No, I wouldn't say a flying squirrel's exotic. I think of tigers and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like
Right.
things like that.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not saying all people that own animals, lots of animals, are weirdos, but yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
great.
I don't want to offend anyone.
You probably already did.
Oh well. It's America.
So offend people.
Offend people as much as you want is our slogan here.
You will get offended. Okay.
People choose to be offended.
I said that to you, and you didn't agree with me.
I totally agree with that.
Oh.
I've never not agreed with that.
We just talked about this.
I say that all the time.
Mm.
What are you talking about?
I swear you didn't agree with me.
About people choosing to be offended?
Yeah. You were like, I don't know if that's 100% true. Sometimes people just say things like to be rude.
Okay. No, I do remember that. No, the majority of people choose to be offended. But I mean, anyways, we don't need to.
Yeah, we're going off topic. Okay, let me get back.
Okay.
So that was the first zoos. Modern day zoos. So fast forward 139 years, and it is clear that zoological environments have made great strides in animal welfare and conservation of endangered species. Now in, a lot of zoos, not all zoos, but animals have more space and visitor influences have been reduced compared to when zoos first started.
Wait, say that again? Visitor what?
Influences?
What does that mean?
Like, I think, like, in first zoos, like, people could interact more with the animals or, like, feed them or, things like that.
I think that rule mainly applies in the U.S. I think in a lot of other countries, I was in Africa for a while, and that rule didn't apply to most places.
You could feed.
Yeah. Hold them and do whatever you want.
You could feed lions.
Well,
in
you
the
couldn't do
safari.
whatever you want, but...
Okay. Yeah, I think it depends on the zoo, but there are different types of zoos. So when I think of a zoo, I think of like, we're in Utah, so like the Utah Hogle Zoo, like that is a zoo I think of.
Well, I think most people will think of that type of zoo, which is, I mean, it's probably not on par with this, but the San Diego Zoo.
Yeah, that was the example I had.
Typical, yeah, I think that's what most people think of.
Yeah, which is the largest zoo in the United States.
Uh-huh.
So there are suburban versus urban zoos. So that's like San Diego, where they're in a suburban area surrounded by a large city. There's not a lot of room for expansion and growth. But they do have animals on 100 acres, and then they have a wild animal park on 2,000 acres.
So that 100 acres is including all the animals. That's not like one animal has 100 acres.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. But then they have a wild animal park too, with animals on 2,000 acres. So I'm not sure how they decide which animals go where, but anyway. So then there's safari parks, which you've been to, right?
I have.
So that's where tourists can drive their own cars and see the wildlife. And then there's game reserves, where animals in all game reserves are protected from illegal hunting, which is a threat to many endangered species. And then there's petting zoos, like they have at Thanksgiving Point, where you can go and pet the zoos. The zoos? The animals.
Good zoo.
Pet the animals. So, anyway, my first point isn't like a big point, but it's just to show that we have come a long way with how we are learning and wanting to learn and research more about animal, their environments and helping them. And so I'll get more into that later. But
how much do you feel like personally, though, that zoos have influenced you to be more nature aware? And
I'm not talking about like me personally. I'm talking about like the zoo, the people who work there.
Is just, I feel like a lot of zoos are there. I'll talk about this, but they're there to say, we teach people and we help educate people and influence people to care for wildlife. And I mean, how much do you think that's true?
But I don't think that's fair to say that that doesn't affect anyone that goes
I
to a
didn't say
zoo.
that. I think most people, though, they go to the zoo just to check out animals. They're not there, and they read the description there on the little plaque.
I do.
No,
You are
no,
that
I
doesn't.
didn't finish my
Oh, sorry.
interrupting me. Read it, and then it changes their life. They dedicate their life
Totally
to.
changed my life.
All right. Well,
I secretly have a ton of money going to a gorilla fund.
I would be extremely mad if that was true. Yeah. Okay. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So my first point is animals are not meant to be in zoos, and in my opinion, they are 100% for our entertainment.
Okay.
For people's entertainment.
That's your opinion, not fact, right?
It's kind of fact.
No, you just said in your opinion, so stick with that.
In my opinion, and also a fact.
You have to cite your facts.
I am. It's from freedomforanimals.org.
Okay. It says in Justin's opinion. It says it on there.
No, what are you talking about? Something can be my opinion and it can also be factual, can't it? Well, this is a debate.
Well, no, because opinion and fact are completely different.
Okay, obviously, this is partially opinionated because it's a debate. If something is 100% factual, you can't debate it. That's why we're debating. I mean, like we couldn't debate whether or not
this guy is blue.
Yeah.
Unless you're colorblind.
Okay. Anyways. Okay, so my first point, and this is again from freedomforanimals.org. I couldn't find who wrote it. I'm sorry. I struggle with that. I'm not sure where they put their freaking names on those things, but sometimes they're just so difficult to find. So my first thing is animals suffer in zoos. A government-funded study of elephants in UK zoos found that there was welfare concern for every elephant in the UK. 75% of elephants were overweight and only 16% could walk normally.
That's sad.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
The remainder having various degrees of lameness. I don't really know what that means.
Well, that's probably just...
They were just lame. Like they were just like...
Like a lame elephant.
They didn't, like going out and partying and stuff.
Introverts.
Super lame. Less than 20% were totally free of foot problems. This kind of reminded me of... This is also another thing that kind of changed my mind on zoos and stuff was the documentary Blackfish.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's considered a zoo. That's an aquarium. That's different.
Which is a form of a zoo.
No, zoos and aquariums are different. That's an aquarium.
I mean, they're both the same concept.
But yeah, I agree. That was a hard thing to watch.
So you're not for aquariums?
No, it depends. It depends on... I'll get into that later. You just go.
Okay, but that reminded me of Blackfish because, the whales, their fins... they get all floppy,
right,
when they're sad and
their
depressed.
Dorsal fin.
Yeah, their dorsal fin. And they have found similar things with lots of animals that are in zoos, like with the elephant's feet. I don't know exactly what happens, but
they shrink.
No, I'm not really sure.
They get humanitis.
But when you don't have enough space, lots of things can go wrong. Another thing, my next one is there is not enough space for animals, and this specifically applies. Not specifically, but it applies mostly to tigers, lions, like elephants. Obviously, there's animals in zoos where I'll admit some of them don't require a lot of space, or maybe even notice.
Like a spider.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't care if they're in zoos or not. So tigers and lions have around 18,000 times less space in zoos than they would in the wild. Polar bears have 1 million times less space.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
1 million times? Is that what I said?
Yeah, 1 million times less space. That's crazy.
I will just say this now. I do agree with like large animals not being kept in zoos.
Those would... So you're okay with all large animals not being in zoos?
Most of them aren't endangered. I guess a polar bear, but like...
imagine if they took away all those animals that I just said. Most zoos would not be very profitable.
Probably not, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I think there's benefits and obviously not good things on
So
both
you're already
ends.
agreeing with me. Case one.
To a
Debate
point.
one.
To a point.
Okay, my next thing is most animals die prematurely in zoos. African elephants in the wild live more than 3 times as long as those kept in zoos. Even Asian elephants working in timber camps. I don't really know what that is though. I guess in Asia they use elephants to help with timber. I don't know.
Well,
They live longer than those born in zoos. 40% of lion cubs die before 1 month of age. That's so sad. In the wild. And only 30% of cubs are thought to die before they are 6 months old, and at least a third of those deaths are due to factors which are absent in zoos, like predation.
Predation.
Predation? What's that?
Like
I don't look
predator, like learning how to like hunt and whatever.
Oh, yeah. So I just feel like that goes with these animals are not meant to live the way they live in zoos.
Yeah.
Most animals.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, there's, birds and whatever. I don't know if it doesn't seem to, from what I found, a lot of studies are about these bigger animals.
You don't think it affects birds that fly and migrate all over the world? But you think it
Well,
affects...
I don't know. In some zoos I've been to, those places, actually I went to one in Africa and it was huge. I mean, it's, it's like how much space. I mean, it was a ton of space for birds to fly around. And so, I mean, obviously it's not good if they're in a little cage like Tweety Bird. That'd be sad.
Right. But Tweety was a home bird.
That's true. So there are some animals which, their natural habitat, like dogs,
Mm-hmm.
A dog's natural habitat isn't, in the Amazon or whatever. But, yeah, so those 3 things they're not opinionated. I feel like those are facts. Animals do suffer in zoos. There's not enough space for most of the animals. And most animals die prematurely in zoos.
Okay.
So that was kind of my first point. Not kind of, it was. So.
Okay, great. All right, so my other point is really short.
No rebuttal to any of that.
I already did. I mean, I
Agreed.
do agree, like, to a point, yeah, that there are, like,
Well, what don't
like
you
the
agree
oh my gosh, what is it called? The zoo at Lagoon, the amusement park in
Yeah,
Utah.
well, that is an extreme example.
I know, that is just the worst. I don't know how they are still able to keep those animals there.
I guarantee there's tons of zoos like that.
Oh, I know, there are. Yeah, those are awful.
Oh yeah, we were when we were on our way to St. George, we stopped at a gas station and there was that random little zoo there. There was an ostrich and a camel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were both just lying down, not doing anything.
That was sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah, things like that is not okay. I don't think at all.
Convinced.
No, you haven't convinced me. This was already my stance anyway.
But that's a big...
I know. Just don't take credit because you didn't convince me.
But I feel like if you already believe in those things I said, I feel like that should be
I already
enough.
said this to you about this debate before we even debated. I was like, this is going to be hard because it's not like I completely am on the side of like all zoos should not be like shut down. They're all great. Like that's why it's hard.
But you mostly are on the side of all zoos should be kept up.
No, not all zoos. Okay, let me get. Okay. That will be my last point.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is short, but zoos do contribute to the economy. So from the AZA.org, I can't remember what the AZA stands for. That's in my next point.
It's okay.
Anyway.
Animal zebra.
Oh, it's
accommodation.
No, stop it. Gosh dang it. All right, anyway, it's in my next point.
Well, it's probably like
something.
animal
It's something zoo aquarium. aquariums. Anyway, okay.
Wouldn't it be animals?
Oh, it's right here. It's my American Zoos and Aquariums.
Oh, okay.
All right, so statistics in 2019 from the AZA combined, like zoos and aquariums combined, there was $16 billion that was contributed to the economy from zoos and aquariums in the U.S. only. This is just in the U.S. Supplied 198,000 jobs, 12 million student learners on field trips annually, and 400,000 teachers are trained in informal science education methods over the last decade. So there are different things that are happening and being contributed to the economy through zoos.
That's great, but I don't know if the debate is whether or not zoos are good for the economy. I feel like it's should animals be in zoos?
No,
Are animals meant to be in zoos?
no, that is not. No, it's should zoos be banned? Stop changing the topics.
I know, but I feel like it's about the animals. And
Why?
I'm not some crazy.
This contributes to
Why?
the economy. I mean, it's not all like.
I just feel like animals have rights too.
Well, of course they do. There is an Animal Rights Act.
Right, but we keep animals in cages in zoos that are too small for them. Animals get deformities. They die prematurely. I mean, we're not helping these animals.
Well, I'll get to that in my next point.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, I told you it was really short.
Okay. So my point 2 is claims zoos make that are not true. And this is from onegreenplanet.org. This one is written by Vasala Cantamanini.
Okay.
And I pronounced that perfectly.
That's exactly how I say it in their language.
Yeah. Okay, so number 1, there's 5. And I'm pretty much just quoting this lady. I'm pretty sure it's a lady. Vasala. It's probably a girl. Number 1, zoos claim to exist for conservation purposes. Okay, so more than half the animals zoos exhibit are not endangered at all. The animals that are endangered are often bred in captive breeding programs. Most breeding programs are unsuccessful due to the unnatural setting as well as the stress that the animals are forced to reproduce in. Zoos are legally not allowed to capture wild animals and display them to the public. Excuse me. The animals existing in zoos now are the lineage of once wild animals that were captured and then thrown into an enclosed space. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
I don't know. I mean, how did they get there? I guess some of them had to be captured at some point.
No, that's illegal now. So
Why no?
all the animals in zoos now are of a lineage of an animal that was captured out of the wild. So all these animals are being raised in cages. They because it's illegal now to do that.
Right.
So it forces people to breed
Right.
these animals, which can cause lots of problems when they're, not breeded properly, and a lot of them end up dying, like with the lion cubs statistic that I read. Gosh, I am struggling breathing. Oh, don't smoke, kids.
Gosh.
Okay, number 2, zoos claim to be effective educational tools. So she says, according to Dr. Lori Marino, the lead author of Do Zoos and Aquariums Promote Attitude Change in Visitors, there is no compelling evidence to date that zoos and aquariums promote attitude changes, education, or interests in conservation in their visitors, despite claims to the contrary. As published in this IDA article,
What is IDA?
I'm not sure.
Which
even criticizes the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So people can look. I didn't look up that exact study, but it's done by Dr. Lori Mariano, and it's titled Do Zoos and Aquariums Promote Attitude Changes in Visitors?
International Development Association.
Oh, AZA too. Look, this one's from AZA. So yeah, there was a study done, And from what they found, and that's why I kind of asked you that in the beginning. I'm like, do you feel like going to zoos? Gosh, our kid is just like talking in there. What is going on?
I don't know.
So there's really no evidence to show that when people and kids visit zoos, it's not changing their attitude. You know, they're going for complete entertainment. They're not going, you know, to read the description and for it to, you know, actually change their attitude towards animals. And it's kind of, what's the word? Ironic? Is that the word? Ironic? Kind of that, I don't know, I feel like zoos teach people things that zoos are not following themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Probably.
Anyways, number 3, zoos claim to provide the utmost care for their animals. So UK zoos have always been highlighted as some of the best in the world. I didn't know that. But an undercover investigation filmed by Captive Animals Protection Society, CAPS, titled No Place Like Home, which was filmed over a period of 2 years, has proved otherwise. Some of the exposed conditions in the documentary were horrible living conditions, untreated, as well as dead animals at the Tweddle Farm Zoo, lions in small locked enclosures at Woburn Safari Park, and white lion cubs being provided to a circus animal trainer from Midland Safari Park. Number 4, zoos claim to provide the best environments for their animals. A New Scientist report titled No Way Out about this stereotypical behavior says that an estimated 80 million captive animals worldwide perform bizarre, repetitive rituals known as stereotypies. Animal behavior experts trying to work out why that movement often seem prompted by frustration. Carnivores pace their boundaries as if to escape. Voles, I don't know. Do you know what a vole is?
I think it's a bird.
Oh. Voles jump against their cage roofs, and pigs root fruitlessly at concrete floors.
No, voles. I don't know. Sorry, keep going.
So some larger species are prone to suffer more than others, which is kind of what we talked about, according to a New York Times article, which lists polar bears, lions, tigers, and cheetahs as animals that zoos should stop keeping them altogether because those animals are 100%, they need more space than what they're given in, you know, like 98% of zoos.
I was completely wrong. A vole is a small rodent.
Okay.
Like a rat.
A rat. An example of this suffering in larger herbivores animals is Billy the elephant, who stood alone in his small enclosure and bobbed his head repeatedly up and down, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. So lots of animals just exhibiting, you know, like behavior that people have found suggests that they are basically going crazy. So, and this can also lead to animals killing trainers and things like that, as we learned in Blackfish.
Why are there trainers? For what?
What do you mean? There's lots of trainers.
In zoos?
Yeah, there's trainers.
Like to train what? Them to do what?
I mean,
there's
all
animal
animals.
keepers.
Yeah, whatever. Animal keepers, there's trainers, there's people that feed the animals. Stuff like that. So the last one, number 5. Zoos claim to use the majority of their income for animal welfare and conservation. A number of zoos have very highly paid employees despite the fact that they're supposedly most interested in conserving animal species. And this is one I feel like you hear about all the time. It's like, oh, like they're a nonprofit and all they do is give back the money. And I'm always, I bet you there are very few zoos that actually do that. I believe there are zoos that do that, but I think a lot of zoos, I mean, I'll read this actually. So, and this talks about the Philadelphia Zoo. So, according to Philly magazine, the Philadelphia Zoo paid its retiring head a flat sum of $340,000 when he left his job. The article states that the zoo's fundraising grew during Hoskins' 13-year tenure, but not nearly at the rate of his salary, which almost tripled from $124,000 in 1987. In 2004, a year in which the zoo was laying off staff and facing a $4 million shortfall and a $25 million operating budget, its chief operating officer left with a salary and exit package totaling $473,000. And that, I mean, I feel like a lot of that could have gone to conservation and things that a lot of zoos promote that they do.
Right.
So that was just one example. I bet you if you did more digging, I didn't do it on all zoos, obviously, because there's thousands and thousands of zoos. But I guarantee when you hear about a zoo being nonprofit, someone somewhere in that zoo or who owns the zoo is making a poop load of money.
Okay.
So.
Is that it?
Yeah. I
So
just had one more point.
my last point is all about conservation and like how zoos are important for conservation, which is basically what you just covered. So on your end. But there's an article titled 8 Reasons That Zoos Are Critically Important for Conservation by Dr. James Burrell. And his first one is that there are 39 species of animals that are considered extinct in the wild by the IUCN, which is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. There are some species that would have gone completely extinct if it were not for the zoos where these 39 species of animals reside. So the second one was for species whose survival in the wild looks in doubt. Zoos often set up insurance populations. Some zoos have long-term breeding programs to help build up a population to reintroduce into the wild. So I don't know like what zoos have good breeding programs or if there are any, but
So yeah, I did research, and that's kind of my last point, but some zoos do that. They actually do breed them, but a lot of zoos breed animals and they keep them. They keep them in their zoos, and they say that they're endangered, so we're going to keep them in this small little cage.
Right.
Which is not the circle of life.
Yeah.
It's unnatural, I think.
Yeah. So the next point is that reintroduction is a big controversial subject when it comes to zoos. So Dr. James Burrell states, it is often argued that zoos are bad because so few reintroductions actually happen. I would argue that it's not the zoos at fault. It's that a reintroduction can't occur if the reason they went extinct in the first place hasn't been resolved. Amongst the most well-known and successful reintroductions are, so he has 3 that are the most successful. And obviously there's more, but these were the 3 that were most successful. The scimitar horned oryx. The reintroduction began with the species in 2017. The California condor, only 23 existed. And then the San Diego Zoo saved the species, and the chicks were reared. Then when they were grown and ready, they were introduced into the wild. And there are now more than 400. The golden lion tamarin went from critically endangered to endangered after 30 years of tireless efforts of reintroduction. So finally reintroduction was possible, and now there are 3,100 in the wild. So reintroduction is difficult. As I researched, it is really difficult to reintroduce a species into the wild because many things can go wrong when trying to reintroduce them. Like an endangered species back into the wild, and different obstacles are in the way, like pollution or climate change, and it takes time to accomplish this task. So I think a lot of people look at it as oh my gosh, they aren't doing anything with it. And I'm not saying that all animals are endangered in a zoo, but there are some that are, and they're trying to reintroduce them into the wild, which takes time.
Sometimes I wonder though how much the reason, I know that there are animals that go extinct or close to extinction because of humans, which is sad, like with killing rhinos. Actually, I don't even know if I don't think they're going extinct, but
I think there's a certain kind of rhino that is.
Yeah, so that stuff is really sad. But I wonder how many animals go extinct just due to basically evolution. I mean, throughout time, animals die. They die off. It's a part of life. And so sometimes I feel like that's why these things are unsuccessful, because maybe since time has changed and because people are people and we pollute the air, and that's not changing anytime soon.
That's not evolution of animals. That is evolution of people destroying their habitats.
I'm just saying evolution in general. I'm not saying necessarily, I'm just saying the way the world moves, which...
So then what about like polar bears?
What do you mean?
People aren't building houses on...
Well, I think
like,
with polar bears, that's the example of people are poaching them, right?
No, the ice is melting. They literally have like...
Okay, so that's an
nothing.
environment thing.
Yeah, so that's why I said climate change like is a huge thing. I know a lot of people probably don't believe in that, but like that's a huge factor.
Yeah.
And trying to reintroduce these animals into a climate they can't live in is
right. So that's
hard.
What I mean is maybe it's just we need to accept that's sad, but I mean maybe there's just nothing we can do.
Well, then what about like the bees?
I don't know. We could go over each animal. My whole point is just maybe sometimes evolution kills off animals.
I know, but the scary thing is like
And
there
it's
is a
sad.
food chain. Like eventually I feel like if all these animals start dying, it will affect humans.
No, I feel like there's definitely animals that as humans we have the obligation, you know, like bees or whatever, you know, that are essential. But not all animals are like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes they go extinct and it's sad, and you know, ask the dinosaurs. You know.
Oh my gosh.
No one saved the dinosaurs.
We weren't here.
You don't know that.
All right. Anyway, I was not finished with my point.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So the fourth thing he said was that zoos are a living museum. What we learn about wild animals in captivity can help us manage and conserve them in the wild. So from animal behavior to reproductive rates to dietary requirements. So then I looked up the AZA, which I was really interested in learning about them because I kept seeing that acronym pop up, which was the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So
American. You said American Zoos and Aquariums when you looked it up.
Sorry, I think I said that wrong. It's actually the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
When you said it the first time, you said American Zoos and Aquariums.
Oh, yeah, I did. But my point was that the economy was only for American zoos and aquariums. So it's actually the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
Okay.
Sorry, I said that. I said that wrong.
Getting your facts all mixed up.
Hey, there's a lot of acronyms, okay? Okay. So there are 238 accredited zoos and aquariums in 12 countries by the AZA. So I looked up the AZA and how a zoo or aquarium can become accredited and what it means to be accredited. So not all zoos in the world are accredited by this. So first, the AZA chooses the expert out of 12 members in their accreditation commission to evaluate the zoo. So these experts are leaders in their field and are very educated. So they choose that person to go and evaluate the zoo. Second, they examine the living conditions of all animals, social groupings, health, and nutrition. They also evaluate the veterinary program, involvement in conservation research, education programs, safety policies and procedures, security, physical facilities, guest services, and the quality of the institution's staff. They also evaluate the institution's finances, governing authority, and its support organization. So third, the AZA evaluates the institution by having them fill out a detailed questionnaire, which includes copies of their policies, procedures, records, lists, and reports. And this application takes many months to complete, and then it takes 6 months to study and evaluate from the AZA. The inspector spends several long days at the zoo or aquarium visiting every area, interviewing staff, checking records, and examining the physical facilities and the animal collection. The inspectors then write a detailed report about everything they saw and evaluate it and submit it to the Accreditation Commission.
This is a very long description about the AZA.
I'm saying this is the process that zoos have to go through in
No.
order to be
Yeah.
accredited.
No. I get your
And it's a
point.
really long, detailed process. So finally, once they've done all of this stuff, then the accreditation commission decides whether or not to grant accreditation. And it doesn't matter if an institution is new or is previously accredited, but their standards are really high and not every candidate receives accreditation. So once they are accredited, then they have to keep up with all of the high standards that the AZA sets, and then they have to go through a full accreditation process every 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
I read about some zoos are accredited and some aren't.
yeah, so I feel like that's
But I still feel like a lot of zoos that are accredited still have the conditions that are not good for animals.
Yeah, probably. But I'm just saying, I feel like 238 out of like the whole world is not very many. And I don't know how many like try to be accredited, but that's a big thing.
No, that's not very many. So maybe it is more, I don't know, maybe it is more legit, and maybe a lot of famous zoos aren't even, I actually don't even know. I did read about that though. I didn't know it was specifically the AZA, but I read that some are accredited and some are not.
Yeah. But then there's like a world's zoo organizer, whatever, that you can be accredited through that too. But
Well, I'm sure you have to be accredited by something to be a zoo. Really?
Yeah. This is a choice to be accredited to this organization, which is like a big thing where it's like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you have to legally follow some sort of rules, though, I'm sure.
Do you?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I would think so.
Well, I guess because, yeah, I don't know. I never looked into like the Animal Protection Act or whatever it's called, Animal Rights Act. I never really looked into that to like see what are the rights that animals have.
My thing is just, I feel like a lot of people, even today, and I feel like this is kind of almost an older view from older generations, but the idea that animals don't really have feelings, that animals are animals, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're in a kennel. It doesn't matter if you beat them. It doesn't matter if, they're just, they're so below us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem that I have, because, through research, we show that animals feel a lot of emotion, just like humans do.
Yeah, you should tell that to my mom.
Why?
She doesn't think like dogs have feelings, that they just
really?
kind of like walk around. Not that she beat our dogs or anything. She just doesn't think they think about anything or have feelings.
I just think
whatever.
That's so funny that some people have that idea, though, because you see, I mean, you can use the example of when animals have babies.
Mm-hmm.
They protect
sometimes
them.
They eat them.
Feed them. I know. I mean, I'm not saying all examples, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, that's the main point. I feel like if most people had that view, they would look at an animal in a cage and say, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one wants that.
Right.
So anyway, so my last point is pretty short, but it is that I do believe that some zoos are actually good, but I believe that they need three main things. And those things are that the first one, and this is, I think, a really important one, is that they are legitimately nonprofit. So all of their proceedings go towards animal conservation, education, to stop poaching, whatever their mission is.
What about their employees?
I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I mean, obviously you have to.
Because I looked it up, and their employees are paid through
employees are paid. In some, though, they're not. Some people are volunteers.
Volunteers.
They volunteer.
So the AZA, those who are accredited through them, they provide $231 million towards like conservation research and stuff.
Yeah, and that stuff is really cool. And if one tiger has to be in jail for that to happen, then so be it. No, I'm just kidding. If one elephant has to grow deformed feet to provide, millions of other elephants with security.
So how many of these deformities are from living in the cage, and how many are from like, what is the word?
Breeding?
Like hereditary.
Well, some of I think the deformities are from breeding, because breeding is a lot of times unnatural. The way, like, I mean, a lot of animals. I mean, if I don't want to bring this up again, but when you saw the Tiger King, they're breeding animals that aren't necessarily meant to be breeded.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're new species, and it's just, I feel like sometimes as humans we do things with the intention of trying to do good, but it ends up when we're like trying to play God. And it's just sometimes I feel like we obviously need to do our part as humans and try to help the environment and be good people, but there's a line where it's like you're trying to play God now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes we need to let nature take its course, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that's sad sometimes, but I don't know, you know? So, anyways, that's the first one. So, like a legitimate nonprofit, because I also did read that there are lots of zoos that say nonprofit, but then,
Yeah.
they give, some guy $500,000 as a salary. Like, it's insane. It's stupid.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's
You
a lot
know?
of money.
Yeah. So I just think that's not good and very corrupt and deceiving. The next one is really important as well. All these are important, but this is sufficient space. And this is a big one. And I use Kruger National Park as an example because I've actually been there. Because Kruger National Park it takes up like 3 different countries. It takes up like South Africa, I think Botswana, and oh my gosh, it starts with an M.
So
Or
I think
Zambia.
national parks are different than zoos, though.
I know, and that's why
Yellowstone.
yeah, but I think it's kind of a form of a zoo
Mm-hmm.
in a
Like
way.
the safari
Yeah,
type of thing.
because I did look that up, and there wasn't. I don't know. They are types of zoos, and there might be zoos. I'm not really sure, but just sufficient space. And I think for some animals, it is impossible to provide sufficient space. And those
Mm-hmm.
animals where it is impossible to provide that sufficient space, they shouldn't be allowed to be in zoos. As we know how much space animals need.
Yeah.
So if we know that a lion needs 5 million acres or whatever to roam and hunt and whatever, obviously that animal shouldn't be in zoos.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's they have an acre to roam. Well, guess what? They need more than an acre. That sounds like a lot to us.
Yeah.
That's not a lot to a lion,
Mm-hmm.
or a polar bear. So I wrote basically zoos without cages. So then the last one is that they actually do what they say. And an example I use is if they are breeding to prevent extinction, that they actually release those animals into the wild. Because a lot of zoos say that they're breeding when they technically are breeding. We're breeding to prevent extinction. But then they put the animals in cages and use them for their own gain.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah, that's
honestly,
correct.
I bet you an animal would rather be killed off by whatever than be stuck in a cage for the rest of its life.
You should go ask him.
I don't know. Like, would you rather live your entire life in complete sadness and in a cage, or would you rather just have it over?
I don't know.
Really, you don't?
If I was with my family and
Oh
sadness.
my
and
gosh, no. If someone came to you and they're like, Sarah, I'm gonna give you 2 options. I'm gonna give you the option to be in this little cage that's the size that's 500 square feet, and you have to be in there for the rest of your life, and we'll feed you through a hole, or we can shoot you right now.
That's not what they do. That's not even accurate. Give me an accurate,
Okay, give you a lethal injection.
What? That's not what they do either.
Yeah, they do.
I thought the scenario was you set me out in the wild.
Well, that's the third that's the best option.
So I want that option. So why don't
A lot
you
of
give
animals
that to
don't
me?
get that option. That's my point.
Okay. Am I supposed to answer?
Yes, you are. What would
I'd
you
rather stay in the cage.
No, you wouldn't. You would not. She's lying. So
I don't like needles.
They hit you with a shovel really hard.
Well, that would be a horrible death.
What is your most preferred way of death?
As an animal or me?
Well, you're not an animal.
I know, but I thought you were asking
If you were
as an
given a
animal.
choice.
To just die in my sleep.
Oh my gosh.
What? Is that a lame answer? That's how I prefer to die.
I mean, like if someone's doing it for you.
Well, then I have an IV running, and you give me the go to sleep medicine, and I just go to sleep.
The go to sleep medicine. Also known as morphine.
That is not what it's known as.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know? Yeah, when doctors like euthanize patients, they overdose the what did I just say? Morphine.
This up.
I'm not saying that's in 100% cases, but a lot of times when you overdose morphine, it kills the person. But it's like not really, it's not obvious.
Pentobarbital is what it's
What
called.
did you type in Google?
I said, what drug is used to euthanize a human?
No, that's that's probably what they give like patient or people in like,
phenytoin.
That's probably what they give people in prisons. If you type
That's
that
what
in.
I want.
No, I'm talking about in hospitals.
They probably have that in hospitals too.
I know, but it's illegal.
I know it's illegal.
It's illegal to euthanize.
I know it's illegal.
I know, but some patients want it. So I don't know. This is all kind of a conspiracy, but I've heard doctors will overdose the morphine on patients that are just like, I just want to die and I just want to go to sleep in no pain. So they overdose the morphine. We should get a doctor on here.
Mm-hmm. Let's have Rennie on here.
We should. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's how I'd want to go. Euthanasia.
Okay. All right. Well, that's you're done, right?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, that's all I have as well. And
Great.
yeah, I feel like you kind of agreed with me on most things.
Yeah, I do on most things. I already kind of felt that way anyway. That's why this topic was kind of hard. But I'm not as far on your side as you are.
Well, obviously, because I legitimately have a hard time going to zoos now.
Yeah, I know.
Which is sad because I feel bad because, you know, I like seeing our kids and they think it's cool and I get that. I'm not thinking they're evil for, you know, having fun looking at cool animals.
Right.
But it really is. And I'm not some like weird animal lover
activist
or tree hugger or whatever. Like, I just feel like a normal person and I just see these animals and I'm like, that's sad.
I think a tree hugger is... Well, no, I don't know. Never mind.
Well, a tree hugger is...
Plants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, don't kill the rainforest. But I feel like a lot of times those people are put in the box of, like, animal
They're
lovers.
intertwined.
Yeah, so I'm just saying I'm not like a typical... I don't consider myself one of those people. Right. Not saying they're bad. But I feel like there are the extremes. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm just surprised at how many people don't even think about that when they go to the zoo as an adult. I get it completely as a kid, but it surprised me how many adults just oversee that.
Have you had this conversation with many adults?
Well, no, but it's obvious.
It's not obvious. You don't know what's going through people's heads.
Whenever I brought this up, I am in the minority with my family and yours. When people are like, well, why don't
brought this up?
Why don't? Oh, it's been brought up before. People are like, why don't you like going to the zoo? That happens all the time. What are you talking about in our family?
Oh, we talk about zoos all the time.
No, but it comes up like if you go to the zoo, and you know I don't go, and someone's like, well, why didn't Justin go? Why don't you go to the zoo? Just by people asking that, they don't understand.
Yeah.
When you know,
that's true.
That's what most people would say is, oh, why don't you like the zoo?
That's true.
And it's like, well, I don't like it because I feel like it's obvious why you don't like zoos. But people don't see that. So I don't know. I'm not saying people are terrible, but they are.
Okay. And
anyways.
that's that. People are terrible.
No. But I don't know. Sometimes people just need to open their
There's
eyes.
good people, that are really trying to do good
No, 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 no. I think a lot of
with,
I
with
think
this whole
I
thing.
like to think that most people are good human beings. The
Yeah.
majority.
Well, I'm specifically talking about the zoos. Like I think I
That's what I
would
mean,
like
though.
to think there are most people really
No,
trying to
yeah,
do
I don't
good.
think most people go to the zoo and be like, "Yeah, suck it, lion." Like, yeah, like I don't think people are there and they're happy, but they just it doesn't even cross their mind, which means
Yeah.
it's like ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'm sure I'm ignorant about things as well. Maybe so. Anyways,
Okay.
I think that's it.
Great. We'll wrap it up then.
Thank you for listening,
Thanks,
and you
guys.
all have a great
Whatever.
day.
Day, night, whatever it is.
Yep. Ta
Goodbye.
ta. Bye. I know. That's why I was wanting to. I'll finish this up tomorrow. I was hoping we could maybe watch like an episode. Yeah. Yes. I need to remember though. I'm exporting it real quick, just the audio. That way it's easier when I connect it to the video. Because if we once we do like, because I don't